It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye.
Hey everybody, it's Aaron from Got a Minute. I'm liking the outdoors, a little bit of bush, a little bit of sun, a little bit of birds flapping in the background. And hey, we're waiting for the rapture. We're hoping it's this year. We're making parallels with David in 2030, Jesus being the son of David, and just building upon that. So please watch the video a few days ago. I gave you 30 reasons. I forget what I called it, 30 reasons, something about King David. Forget. But this is just an additional few things. So around 6 things that I've just kind of found since then. The first was I pinned a comment in that video, and it was called, it was by a person named Preparing Unbelievers. And I love this comment, so thank you. So pinned means it's at the top of the comments, and you can see it first thing. And so they wrote, King David, 3,000 years ago, one day equals 1,000 years. 3 days, 2 Samuel 24. David chooses 3 days of pestilence. After 3 days, he asks how he can spare Jerusalem. That's perfect. So, oops, let me just go to the comment again. And he is told to build an altar to God. Perfect. So, that's awesome, because there was options there. David could have chosen 7 years of, I think it was famine, and then 3 months of war against his enemy, or 3 days of pestilence. We know that a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. And like I was mentioning many times, King David died 3,000 years before 2030, within that range. A day is like 1,000 years. David chooses the 3 days to deal with God, basically, because he counted men, and he did a consensus when he shouldn't have. So an angel of the Lord came, and I believe killed 70,000 people. But anyway, the point is, David chose 3 days instead of the rest of it, and a day is like 1,000 years. So this is yet again a perfect match, a perfect blueprint to our story right there. So that's point number 1. So thank you, brother or sister, Preparing Unbelievers, for posting that. I think that's a really cool addition to our study. Number 2 was, this is just a cool story, okay? This is number 2 of 6 here, okay? So, but my brother David, he's the guy that I told you, he's got Psalm 23 on his arm. And we know Psalm 23 is one of the most awesome psalms in the book of Psalms. But many years ago, there's a younger guy named Nathan that wanted to talk with David, my friend David. So my friend Nathan wanted to talk with David, and they wanted to do a little Bible study. And Nathan said, hey, could we just open it up, the Bible, to any chapter randomly in the Bible, and you want to talk about it, basically. And David said, sure, yeah, open it up and we'll talk about it, and I'll tell you what I think it means and stuff. So, well, they open up randomly to 2 Samuel chapter 7, which is God's covenant with David. God sends Nathan to tell David about his eternal covenant. So 2 Samuel chapter 7, Nathan is talking to David about God's eternal covenant. But in real life, Nathan opens up the Bible and is talking to David, talking about God's eternal covenant, which will inevitably be Jesus fulfilling that everlasting covenant given to David. It was too much not to share, so I think that's just a fun little confirmation, if you will, of God working in our real lives to bring the text to life. So thank you for sharing that, Brother David. Point number 3 is the lineage. I went online, the lineage of Jesus through Joseph and Mary. I don't know how accurate this chart is, but I'm going to try and post it right here. And basically, Joseph and Mary came from the line of David, and then it branched off from left to right. One direction to Solomon, and the other direction through Nathan, which is another interesting thing, this whole Nathan and David thing. Now we've got this lineage split from Solomon and Nathan, according to this chart. Now, I'd like to look into this further and see how accurate this chart is. I'm assuming that it is, but worth looking into. And then it just comes back to Christ. So isn't it interesting how it's all comes back to David? Again, David died 3,000 years before 2030 and 1,000 years before the death of Christ. Point number 4 is Adonijah, one of Solomon's kids, tried to steal the throne from Solomon right when David was dying. And so I thought this was interesting because it's almost like a type and shadow of the Antichrist trying to take the throne from David, but the rightful king was brought in. So that's all right. I believe it's in basically the first 2 chapters of 1 Kings in the transition from David to Solomon when David died. And so there you got a type and shadow there of that. So that was point number 4. Point number 5, I found this chart. I'm sorry, I'm going to post it here even though it's blurry, but the point is this. Queen Elizabeth is declaring to be the descendant of King David. And if anybody can find a better chart than what I'm posting here, please share it. But Queen Elizabeth is, again, claiming to be the descendant of King David. Why in the world are they interested in even saying that, other than the fact that the importance of being a descendant of King David? Well, I think we're on to something here. And we don't know who the Antichrist is. We don't know what's going on. But if somebody's claiming to be the King of David, my ears are a little more open at the moment because of this whole King David study. And for my 6th point, I'm gonna put a video at the end, if it allows me to do that, from Lion and Lamb Ministries. I don't think they're Rapture people, but that's okay. Just take the video for what it is on its own, talking about King David and how, King David's claiming to be, King Charles is claiming to be from the line of King David, etc., etc. He did a good job explaining it in 1 minute, so I'll post that if I'm allowed to do that. I think I will. But the main point of all this is, I think that we've got a lot of things going on to connect to 2030. A lot of things going on to connect to 2030 that particularly connect with David and Jesus now. The math is perfect. The math lines up really, really nice. I can't really really go much further than where we are right now than dealing with just all the prophetic events that are happening. I would say, again, I said it, I'll say it again, I think it's really an interesting thought to consider that the 2 witnesses might show up on Feast of Trumpets. So, why? Because we need 2 witnesses to witness the new moon, to declare the beginning of that month. So it would be very fitting to think that, well, what if the 2 witnesses show up on Feast of Trumpets? And if that's the case, and they start their ministry around then, depending on how you do the math, it could end up being that they die around Passover. And what is it, 27 or 26? I'd have to do the math again, but that would line up pretty good too. That would fit a lot of typology. So anyway, we'll put the video here. Please enter into a relationship with Jesus Christ. My salvation verses are in the description box below. And that's it, guys. Go Jesus, go. One day closer. See you in the clouds. Adios.
Prince Charles, when he became king, he asserted divine right. And essentially, he claims, and by the way, there is a lineage chart that says this, he's the son of David. And when he was anointed with oil from the Mount of Olives, and he had other things like the stone of scone, he's claiming those things from the land. He's claiming at his anointing that he's the son of David. And if you're the son of David, you're the king of Israel. So he's asserting that divine right. Now, he says divine right. That's what that means. It means he's claiming to be the king of Israel. He's claiming to be the son of David. Now, we all know that the anti-Messiah is to be kind of an imitator of the Messiah. And this coronation, I don't know how you could have a coronation for a future anti-Messiah to be more thematically on point for what the Bible tells us about the Antichrist and what he's supposed to do compared to the Messiah.
Hallelujah, I'll see you in the rapture.